The alien camp was alive with noise. Fires burned in metal pits, their smoke rising into the dark sky of the conquered world. Around those fires, alien soldiers sat in groups, laughing, drinking, and telling stories of their victories. Their voices carried across the camp like a celebration that never ended. They were not afraid. Why should they be? Their empire had crushed world after world, and tonight they waited only for the command to move deeper into enemy territory. The humans had been broken, scattered, defeated. To these soldiers, humans were weak creatures, their stories and their culture nothing but entertainment. One young soldier, tall and proud, held up an old data tablet. It was stolen from a ruined human library. The text on it was filled with strange tales, stories of dragons, monsters, demons, and ancient heroes who rose to fight impossible battles. The soldier read the words out loud, struggling with the human language but laughing after every line. "Listen to this," he shouted to the others. "A beast with wings of fire and scales of iron. It breathes flame and destroys entire cities." Humans truly believed such a thing once lived on their planet. How foolish! They created monsters in their minds because they were too weak to face reality. The others burst out laughing. Some even imitated the sound of a dragon, roaring in mockery. The camp was filled with cruel joy. Another soldier joined in, reading from a different story. This one speaks of demons, creatures of darkness that hunted men in the night. Humans said they were evil spirits. Look how pathetic they were. Instead of courage, they invented imaginary nightmares to explain their fear. The laughter grew louder. Soldiers slapped each other's backs, their armor clanging together. To them, the myths of humanity were nothing but the desperate illusions of a fragile species. But not everyone laughed. At the edge of the firelight sat a figure who did not join the celebration. His armor was old, scarred, and heavy. His face carried the lines of years spent in war. He was General Karak, the war hero of their people. Many of the soldiers respected him. Many feared him. He had led armies across the galaxy, won battles thought impossible, and survived when others had fallen. Yet tonight, as the myths of humans were mocked, Karak said nothing. He stared into the fire, his sharp eyes reflecting the flames. One of the younger soldiers noticed. He pointed and shouted, "General Karak, why do you sit in silence? Do these human tales not amuse you? Surely you see them as we do, pathetic stories of a weak race." The camp turned toward him. Dozens of alien faces now looked at the general, waiting for his answer. Karak's jaw tightened, but he did not laugh. Instead, his voice came slow, deep, and heavy with memory. "They are not pathetic," he said. The soldiers blinked, confused. Silence began to fall, though the fires still crackled in the pits. One of the younger warriors scoffed. "Not pathetic. General, they are lies. Myths. Humans tell stories of fire beasts and gods of war because they cannot face the truth, that they are weak, fragile, and broken." Karak raised his eyes from the fire. His gaze was sharp as a blade. "You think they are lies because you do not know humans," he said. "But I know them. I fought them when they were strongest. I saw with my own eyes the things they made, and the things they became." The younger soldiers exchanged nervous laughter. Some shook their heads, thinking their general was only trying to frighten them. One asked boldly, "What did you see, General? A dragon? A demon? A human hero who could not die?" Karak's silence was heavier than words. The fire popped. The night wind carried a faint whistle through the camp. Finally, the general spoke again, his voice low, like a warning. "Yes," he said. "I saw them all." The camp grew still. No laughter remained. Every soldier's eyes fixed on Karak now. Even the air seemed colder. The youngest soldier, his courage fading, forced a smile. "General, you speak in riddles. Humans cannot summon monsters from their stories. They are flesh and blood, like us." Karak leaned forward, the firelight revealing the long scar across his arm, a scar no ordinary weapon could have made. You believe that, he said, because you have not stood on a battlefield against them. You laugh at their myths because you think them only tales. But I tell you this, their myths are warnings. Whispers spread through the camp. The younger troops exchanged uneasy looks. One dared to speak again. Then tell us, General. Tell us what you mean. Karak's eyes narrowed. He looked around the camp, his soldiers waiting for an answer. His voice dropped lower, colder. If you wish to laugh, laugh now. Because once I tell you, you will not laugh again. The flames flickered higher, as though the fire itself leaned closer to listen. The soldiers did not laugh. They waited. And General Karak began his confession. The fire burned lower as the night deepened. Shadows stretched long across the alien camp, and the soldiers who had once laughed at human myths now sat in silence. Their voices were gone, their pride cooled. All eyes were fixed on General Karak. For a long moment, the war hero said nothing. He only stared into the flames, as if searching for something hidden within them. The soldiers shifted uneasily. They were trained to fear no enemy, yet the silence of their general filled them with unease. Finally, Karak spoke. His words came slow, heavy, and each one seemed to carry the weight of years. You laugh at humans, he said, because you have only seen their weakness. You read their stories of dragons and demons and think them lies. But I tell you this, those stories are not lies. They are shadows of something real. I know, because I faced them myself. The soldiers leaned closer. The younger ones whispered to each other, unsure if their general spoke truth or madness. One of them, bold enough to question, raised his voice. What did you see, General? Tell us. You say their myths are warnings. Warnings of what? Karak's gaze lifted, sharp and burning. Warnings of humanity itself. The camp grew colder. The fire hissed. Karak leaned forward, his scarred hand resting on his knee. I was young when I first faced them. Our empire believed the humans were easy prey. We had greater fleets, stronger weapons, better training. We were certain of victory. Our commanders promised the war would end in weeks. He paused, his jaw tightening. It did not end in weeks. It did not end in months. It dragged on, bleeding us slowly, burning our pride. And I learned why. The younger soldiers exchanged uneasy glances. Karak's voice grew harder. The humans do not fight as we do. They do not fight with reason. They fight with something deeper, something that no logic can explain. We thought they feared death. We were wrong. They embrace it. They use it. A murmur spread through the soldiers. None of them had ever imagined such words. Karak continued. I was there at the siege of Dernak, 4. It was a mining world, taken by humans as a stronghold. We surrounded them with 5 fleets. We cut off their supply lines. They were starving, trapped, broken. Our commanders ordered us to press forward, to end it quickly. He closed his eyes for a moment, remembering. When he opened them again, the firelight revealed a shadow of pain. I expected surrender, he said. Any species would have surrendered. But the humans did not. They fought with a fury I had never seen. Even when their bodies were broken, they still rose again. Even when their ships were torn apart, they rammed them into ours. Even when fire consumed their cities, their soldiers crawled through the ash to strike at us. It was madness. It was. He hesitated. It was like fighting the very myths you mock. The youngest soldier swallowed hard. You mean, they became their own legends? Karak's voice was steady, but his eyes were dark. Yes. I saw a man stand against a tank with nothing but a burning torch. I saw a woman, her body torn, still drag herself to a weapon and fire until the enemy fell. I saw soldiers who should have died long before, still walking, still fighting, as if death itself feared them. Tell me, does that not sound like the heroes of their myths? The camp was silent. No one dared laugh now. Karak lifted his arm, the scarred one, and showed it to the soldiers. The mark twisted across his flesh, deep and jagged. "This wound," he said, "was given to me by a human soldier. He was already dying when he struck me. His weapon was shattered. His armor was gone. Yet he fought with such rage that he carved this into me before he fell. I killed him, but in that moment I felt no victory. I felt fear." A shiver ran through the camp. Soldiers who had faced dozens of battles now felt an unease they could not explain. One asked, hesitant, "But General, they are still only flesh and blood. How could they fight like this?" Karak's eyes hardened. "Because they are more than flesh. They are their stories. Their myths are not inventions. They are reflections of what they can become when pushed to the edge. Every tale they tell, every monster they imagine, every hero they dream of, it lives inside them. And in war, they bring those myths to life." The fire cracked loudly, startling some. The night wind carried the sound of distant creatures, but the camp heard nothing except the general's words. He leaned closer, his voice dropping lower. "You think dragons never existed? I saw a human war machine built in the image of one. Its breath was fire that melted our tanks. Its wings cut through our aircraft. And when it roared, even hardened soldiers dropped their weapons and fled." Gasps echoed among the younger troops. "You think demons are lies? I fought against soldiers who wore armor black as the void, moving in silence, striking from the shadows. They did not speak, they did not bleed, and they did not stop. They tore through our lines like predators from another world. We called them demons, because no other word fit." The soldiers stared wide-eyed. Their campfire no longer felt warm. It felt like a fragile light against a growing darkness. Karak's voice grew quieter still, but it carried the weight of command. "Humans do not invent myths to escape fear. They invent myths to prepare for it. They write of monsters so that one day, they can become the monster their enemy fears. And when you laugh at their stories, remember this: every tale you mock may one day stand before you, breathing fire." The youngest soldier trembled, his earlier laughter gone. His voice cracked as he asked, "General, if all this is true, why does the council not tell us? Why do they keep it secret?" Karak's eyes darkened further. He looked at the fire, as if seeing ghosts within it. "Because the truth is too heavy for most to carry. The council believes fear will break us. They prefer lies. But I tell you the truth, because you must be ready. If you ever face humans on the battlefield, remember this: never think them weak. Never think them broken. For that is when they are strongest." The fire hissed, and the shadows around the camp seemed to press closer. No one laughed. No one mocked. The soldiers sat in silence, their minds heavy with images they could not erase. And General Karak leaned back, his face half hidden in shadow. His final words for the night came like a warning carved in stone. "You asked me why I do not laugh at human myths. Now you know. I do not laugh, because I have seen them come alive." The flames flickered lower, and silence ruled the camp. The fire burned low, throwing long shadows across the alien camp. The silence was heavy now. Not one soldier laughed, not one voice rose in mockery. All of them sat frozen, eyes locked on their general. His words from earlier still echoed in their minds. Dragons. Demons. Myths alive. No one wanted to believe him, but no one dared call him a liar. The scar on his arm, the weight in his voice, these were not the signs of a storyteller. They were the scars of truth. General Karak shifted slightly, his old armor creaking. His eyes were fixed on the flames, but his mind was far away, walking again through the memories of war. "You think you know humans," he said slowly. "But you only know the fragments our leaders allow you to see. There are truths buried so deep that even our empire fears to speak of them." The younger soldiers leaned forward. They had never heard their general speak this way. His voice was not the voice of command now, but of memory, of a man who carried a weight no one else understood. One soldier whispered, "What truths, General?" Karak looked up at the night sky. Stars glittered above, cold and distant. He raised a scarred finger toward them. "Out there," he said, "our spies uncovered something the humans tried to hide. Something they should never have attempted. They called it Project Chimera." The name alone sent a ripple of unease through the soldiers. It was sharp, heavy, filled with menace. "What was it?" another soldier asked. Karak's voice grew darker. It was their attempt to make myths real. The campfire hissed, as though reacting to his words. The soldiers felt the air around them grow colder. Karak continued. "Humans have always told stories of monsters, creatures of fire, shadow, and steel. But unlike most species, humans do not forget their stories. They do not treat them as simple entertainment. No, they study them. They ask themselves, what if such creatures could exist? And then, they try to create them." Gasps moved through the group. Karak's eyes narrowed. Project Chimera was hidden from the galaxy. Few even among humans knew of it. But our spies, they found pieces of it. They told us of labs buried deep beneath their planets, of scientists who mixed biology and machine, who forged weapons shaped like their darkest legends. He leaned closer to the fire, his face half in shadow. Most of those experiments failed. But not all. The soldiers froze. Their bodies stiffened, their throats dry. Karak's voice lowered, almost to a whisper. "I was there when the first success appeared on the battlefield. It was not a soldier. It was not a machine. It was something in between. A creature of fire and metal. It had wings of steel that cut the sky, and its breath was a storm of plasma that melted entire lines of tanks. We called it a dragon, because no other word fit." The youngest soldier trembled. His hands clenched against his knees. Karak's eyes grew distant. "Our weapons barely slowed it. Our artillery shells bounced off its armor. When it roared, men dropped their weapons and fled. Some even died from fear alone. And when it struck, cities burned as though the myths of humans had walked out of their books and into our world." The camp was silent. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. "Project Chimera," Karak repeated, his voice filled with loathing. "That was humanity's answer to extinction. Where other species beg for mercy, humans build monsters. They turn fear into flesh. They give their myths teeth and claws and wings." The younger soldiers shifted uneasily. One of them, his voice shaking, asked, "But, General, if they truly built such things, why did we not see more of them in the war?" Karak's jaw tightened. He stared into the flames for a long moment before answering. "Because they fear themselves." Confusion spread through the soldiers. Karak nodded slowly. Yes. The humans did not unleash these creations fully. They feared what they had made. They feared the monsters might turn on them. I believe they kept most of Project Chimera locked away, hidden, never revealed to the wider galaxy. Perhaps even their own armies did not know. One soldier whispered, "Then how do you know?" Karak's voice was like stone. "Because I fought them." Gasps broke out again, sharper this time. Karak raised his scarred arm, letting the firelight reveal the jagged wound once more. "This was not given to me by a simple blade. This scar was carved by a creature forged in Project Chimera. A human weapon born from nightmare. It struck like a demon from their legends, faster than sight, stronger than any soldier should be. I barely survived. Many of my men did not." A shiver ran through the camp. The soldiers who once mocked human myths now felt those myths breathing down their necks. One soldier shook his head, as if refusing the truth. "But, General, how can stories become real? How can humans take things that do not exist and bring them to life?" Karak's eyes burned. "That is what makes them dangerous. They do not accept limits. Where other species say, impossible, Humans ask how. Their myths are not chains to bind their imagination. They are blueprints, warnings, weapons in disguise. The campfire crackled loudly, sending sparks into the night. Some soldiers flinched, as if expecting wings of steel to burst from the shadows. Karak leaned forward, his voice lower than ever, filled with warning. You sit here and laugh because you think their stories are foolish. But remember this, humans have always prepared for monsters by becoming monsters themselves. And if Project Chimera is not truly gone, if even a fragment remains, then you have not yet seen the full power of their myths. The soldiers sat frozen, their faces pale beneath the firelight. One of them whispered, Did our leaders know? Karak looked at him, his face grim. Of course they knew. The High Council received the reports. They buried them. They told us the humans were broken, that their myths were lies. They wanted to protect our pride. But I tell you this truth, our pride is nothing before the shadows humans carry within them. The fire hissed again. The soldiers could not meet each other's eyes. The weight of Karak's words pressed down like a storm. For the first time in their lives, these proud warriors felt something they had never admitted before. Fear. And Karak's final words cut through the silence like a blade. You call their myths entertainment. I call them warnings. And the shadows of the past will rise again. The flames burned lower, and not a single soldier dared laugh. The fire was nearly gone now, burning low, its flames small and weak. Yet the silence in the alien camp was louder than any roar. The soldiers who had once laughed at human stories now sat stiff and uneasy. No one dared speak, not after the general's words. General Karak sat like a statue, his scarred face hard, his eyes cold. He had spoken of dragons of steel and demons in armor, of humans who turned their myths into weapons. His words had shaken the soldiers, but still, some of them could not accept such a truth. At last, one soldier broke the silence. His voice was sharp, but not steady. General, no. It cannot be. Humans are flesh and bone. They are weak. They bleed, they fall, they die. You tell us their stories are real, but that is impossible. Karak turned his head slowly, his gaze locking on the soldier. Impossible, he said quietly. He lifted his arm and pulled aside the sleeve of his armor. The firelight revealed the scar again, deep and jagged, cutting across his skin like the mark of a beast's claw. It looked too brutal, too unnatural, to have come from any simple weapon. This, Karak said, his voice heavy, is not the wound of something weak. This was given to me by a human weapon built to look like a demon. Tell me, do you think a myth gave me this scar? The soldier opened his mouth to argue, but no words came. His throat was dry, his courage gone. Karak stood slowly, his tall form casting a long shadow over the fire. His presence seemed to press down on the camp like a weight. His soldiers watched him, their pride faltering. You think humans are weak because you see only their surface, Karak said. But beneath that surface, they are something else. They carry their past in their blood. Their myths are not inventions. They are memories. The soldiers frowned, confused. One asked, Memories? What do you mean? Karak's eyes glowed faintly in the firelight. His voice was cold, almost bitter. Every story they tell, every legend, every monster, it is not just a tale. It is a record. A warning passed from one generation to the next. Humans do not forget the shadows they once faced. They trap them in myths, so that even when the memory fades, the story remains. The soldiers shifted uneasily. They were warriors, trained to fight without fear. But these words shook them in ways they could not explain. Karak stepped closer to the fire, his face grim. Think about it. Why do humans tell stories of creatures that never existed on their world? Dragons, demons, titans, monsters of every shape. Why invent such nightmares? Because they have seen things like them before. Maybe not on Earth. Maybe not in their time. But somewhere, sometime, humanity faced horrors no one else survived. And instead of forgetting, they wrote them into myths. The camp was quiet. The younger soldiers looked at each other, their eyes wide. One whispered, "So their myths are survival codes?" Karak nodded slowly. "Yes. Stories disguised as warnings. Tales wrapped around truth. And when war comes, they do not just remember their myths, they become them." The words struck the camp like a hammer. Some soldiers shook their heads, refusing to accept it. One shouted, his voice desperate, "Lies! If this were true, our council would have told us. They would have prepared us." Karak's eyes turned sharp as blades. The council buried the truth. They hid the reports. They wanted soldiers who believed humans were weak. They wanted you to fight with pride, not fear. But I have lived too long, fought too many battles, to believe their lies. The soldier's voice broke. "Then why tell us now? Why burden us with this?" Karak looked around the camp, his gaze hard, unyielding. "Because lies will not protect you when the truth comes. You must know what you face. You must understand why I never laugh at human myths. Because one day, when you stand against them, you will see what I saw. And in that moment, you will need to remember my words. Never think them weak. Never think their stories are only stories." The soldiers lowered their heads. Some clenched their fists. Some stared at the fire, unwilling to meet their general's eyes. One young warrior finally whispered, "General, are you saying humans are not like us at all?" Karak's face darkened. His voice was low, but it cut deep. "Humans are like us, but more. They are what happens when a species refuses to die. They are what happens when fear becomes strength. They are what happens when myths walk into reality." The campfire hissed, sparks leaping into the night sky. For a long time, no one spoke. The weight of Karak's words pressed on them all, heavy as chains. At last, the youngest soldier broke the silence. His voice trembled. "General, if what you say is true, then what hope do we have against them?" Karak looked at him, his eyes cold as stone. "Hope. Do not ask for hope. Ask only for courage. Because when humans rise again, when their myths awaken, courage will be all that remains." The words hung in the air, sharp and final. The soldiers sat in silence, their laughter gone forever. The myths they once mocked now pressed down on their hearts like a shadow they could not escape. And General Karak turned his gaze to the sky, his face grim, as though he already knew what was coming. The alien camp lay quiet under the dark sky. The last embers of the fire glowed weakly, throwing soft orange light over the armored soldiers. Silence hung in the air like a living thing. No laughter, no chatter, no boasting. Just the weight of Karak's words, pressing on each mind. The soldiers could still feel it, dragons of steel, demons in shadow, human warriors who rose when all seemed lost. Every story, every warning, Karak had told them. Every scar he bore. The myths were no longer jokes. They were a looming threat. A cold wind swept through the camp, rattling loose equipment. The soldiers tightened their grips on their weapons, eyes scanning the darkness. Even seasoned warriors felt it now, a prickling unease. Something was coming, and they could not see it yet. Karak stood at the edge of the firelight. His armor was black, worn, scarred, and his presence was larger than life. He looked over his soldiers, his gaze piercing. "You have heard my stories," he said. "You have seen my scars. Now you understand why I never laughed at human myths. You laughed at them before, but now you see, they are not tales. They are warnings. And soon, you may face them yourselves." The soldiers shifted. Some swallowed hard, their throats dry. One of the youngest whispered, almost to himself, "I wish they were only stories." Karak did not reply. He only scanned the horizon, his eyes sharp, unblinking. The wind carried nothing but the sounds of the camp. Or so it seemed. Then, a sharp, distant hum cut through the silence. At first, it was soft, almost imperceptible. But it grew steadily, a steady vibration that shook the ground beneath them. The soldiers stiffened. Their training did not prepare them for this sound. Karak's jaw tightened. He turned slowly toward the noise, his expression unreadable. "They are here," he said quietly. A murmur spread through the camp. Who is here?" a soldier asked. Karak's eyes were dark as night. "Humans." The young soldiers stared at him, fear rising like a wave. "Impossible," one shouted. "They cannot reach us. They are scattered, weak, and defeated." Karak shook his head. "Do not underestimate them," he said. "They are not the same species you faced before. Humans learn. Humans adapt. And humans do not die quietly." The hum grew louder, now clearly the sound of engines, hundreds of them. The ground trembled with the vibrations. Soldiers clutched weapons that suddenly felt too small. Some fell to their knees, overwhelmed by the sound. Karak raised a hand, and the camp fell silent once more. His voice cut through the tension like steel. "Every myth you mocked, every tale you laughed at, every story you called a lie, it is real, and now, you will see it for yourselves." The first lights appeared on the horizon, tiny points growing steadily brighter. At first, the soldiers thought it was a trick of the firelight. But Karak's eyes did not lie. He squinted, then pointed. "Ships," he said. "Hundreds, dozens of fleets. And not the remnants you expected. Full strength." Gasps swept through the soldiers. They had expected humans to be weak, scattered, broken. But the sight of approaching ships shattered every assumption. One young soldier, trembling, whispered, Why are they coming now?" Karak's voice was cold. "Because myths cannot be ignored. And humans, do not forget." The fleet moved closer, massive shapes against the starry sky, engines blazing with deadly energy. Each ship was a fortress, bristling with weapons and shields. The hum of their engines was like the roar of dragons, as Karak had warned. The soldiers stared, unable to breathe, unable to move. They had prepared for battle, but nothing could prepare them for this. Karak stepped forward, his armor catching the faint light of the embers. He raised both hands, addressing the terrified soldiers. "Listen to me. Do not panic. Do not run. Stand your ground. Remember everything I have told you. Remember their myths. Remember their legends. If you survive, it will be because you understand what they are capable of." The soldiers nodded shakily, fear twisting their bodies. Some tried to raise their weapons, but their hands shook. Some whispered prayers to gods they did not even believe in. The first human ship entered the range of their sensors. It was enormous, far larger than any vessel the aliens had seen before. Its hull gleamed under the stars, black and silver, with strange markings that pulsed faintly. Karak's eyes darkened. "That," he said, "is no ordinary ship. That is a legend made real. That is a Titan-class warship. It carries more firepower than a dozen fleets. And it is only the beginning." The alien soldiers felt their hearts race. Their pride, their confidence, all crumbled beneath the weight of Karak's warning. The second ship appeared, then a third, then dozens more. Each one moved with precision, silent and deadly. Their formation was perfect, unyielding. The ground shook with the Engine's power. The stars above seemed to flicker with the approaching fleet. A young soldier whispered, They are all coming. The myths, they are real." Karak's face remained calm, though his eyes were sharp. "Yes," he said, "they are real. And now, you will face what we have feared all our lives." The alien camp erupted into activity. Soldiers scrambled to weapons, to shields, to defense stations. But Karak's voice rang out over the chaos. "Do not fight blindly. Remember the stories. Remember their tactics. Remember that humans survive when all else fails. Every myth you have laughed at, every story you have doubted, It is alive now. The first shots fired from the alien weapons, meeting the incoming fleet. Energy blasts streaked across the sky, but the human ships barely slowed. They moved with precision, as if they already knew every attack that would come. Karak watched, his mind sharp, calculating. He could see the younger soldiers' panic, the older soldiers' hesitation. He knew fear had entered their hearts, the fear of facing something beyond their understanding. A human warship struck a column of alien fighters. The impact was devastating. Ships were shredded in seconds. The sound of explosions echoed across the valley, shaking the ground beneath the camp. Soldiers screamed. Weapons flared. The camp became a battlefield instantly. Yet Karak remained steady. His eyes did not leave the approaching fleet. "They are not just ships," he said quietly to one of his aides. "They are stories. They are myths. And now, they are here to remind us why we laughed too soon." The younger soldier nodded, trembling, understanding at last. The tales they had mocked, the warnings they had ignored, were no longer distant words. They were alive, approaching fast, ready to strike. The fleet moved closer, engines roaring, weapons charging. The alien soldiers, once proud and laughing, now faced a horror they could not comprehend. And at that moment, the camp fell completely silent. The laughter, the mockery, the pride, it was all gone. Only the weight of truth remained. The myths were no longer stories. They were reality. Karak stood at the edge of the firelight, his scarred face calm, eyes dark with warning. "Remember this," he said, "when humans rise, when myths walk the battlefield, when stories become war, do not run. Stand. Fight. Or be forgotten." The first human ship unleashed its weapons. A column of energy ripped through the valley. Explosions shattered the night. The aliens screamed, fire roared, and the myths of humanity walked once more into the world. The silence was broken forever.